Welcome, brave souls, to the chilling depths of horror in detail, the realm where the shadows whisper ancient secrets and nightmares come to life. I am your guide through the darkness, and on this channel, we delve into the spine-chilling world of Valentines Day horror stories. First story: The Perfect Valentine's Day. My name is John, and I have to apologize before starting. This story is very hard to track and recall chronologically. Time usually moves slow for me, but not that day. The day I met her. February 6th, 2014. This was the day I went on a trip to the EMP in Seattle. Accompanying me, I had around 15 classmates. Only a handful were male, as was I. Even the teachers were female, so naturally I felt a bit out of my realm. I don't socialize with girls often, unless a trait or mannerism piques my curiosity. Throughout the day, there was one girl who continued to migrate toward me and comment on things. Her name was Destiny. After a while, it was fairly obvious that she was interested in me romantically. She would appear soon after everyone would move on, and she would say something relevant while gently touching my shoulder. We would eventually move on to the African section of the SAM, and again, she appeared out of the corner of my eye. She said what I was thinking, with a powerfully articulate tongue. These masks scare me deeply. I started to pay attention to her. She was wearing a red plaid coat that hung to her sides heavily. From a glance, she really didn't have many different characteristics from our age group, aside from her eyes. Her eyes were a painted blue, but her pupils were colossally dilated. She had dark, running hair that seemed to reach up from her shoulders. Her height matched mine, and she was fairly lean. She stuck close the rest of the trip, still commented, but said nothing as shocking as before, where she spoke my mind. February 9th, 2014. I received a friend notification on Facebook this day. I don't frequent the ever-awkward social site often, so this seemed spontaneous. She found me on there, even though she never knew my name. I thought nothing of it at the time, but then again, we knew most of the same people. We talked for a while, and the anomaly kept reoccurring. She said what I thought. It was sharp and exciting. Had I finally found the girl of my dreams? February 11th, 2014. We arranged a small date for this day, just for coffee. She let me see her iPod, and it was miraculous. She had literally every single artist on it that I did. I have a strange music type, but it was all there as far as I could tell. This made me feel euphoric. February 13th, 2014. This day is where I usually lose track. I can't recall the events clearly, for they happened in such a fast pace. We kissed this day. It was the third date, and I was invited in at the end. I didn't expect much, since my luck showed absolutely no signs of improving much more. Her apartment was down the street from mine. Her walls and rooms were bare, suggesting poverty. I asked about the naked apartment, and she mentioned her recent move to my town. I thought nothing of it. We sat on her floor, in her bedroom. The television had no stand, so sitting on the bed would have blocked our view. Then we were drinking coffee, or maybe it was tea, and her dog, or cat, spilled one of the drinks. I stood up in excitement and said, "Oh shit." The very moment I said it, so did she. A glance was shared, mostly of embarrassment. Then she ran into the kitchen to grab paper towels. I felt out of place and turned inward with a bit of shame for making a mess. She started to hum a tune my grandmother used to hum when she cleans. I finally collected myself and assisted in cleaning up the horrid mess. She either went to the living room next, or maybe a closet. I really can't recall. My brain gets fuzzy and warm when I try to work all of this out. But we ended up in her bedroom, and passion overthrew shyness. Her body was soft. She had moles on her arm that were very adorable. She had a scar down her stomach that was very light and faded. She had a burn mark on her leg that looked like a birthmark. February 14th, 2014, she called me on the phone, said she was frightened and needed me. I didn't collect my usual things, my phone, my lighter, my wallet. I was fast-paced and arrived a few minutes after the call took place. She was nowhere to be found. I called out for her, Joan. I emitted fear and danger with every letter of the name. Joan. I cried into the dank room. I was petrified. What if she had been kidnapped? What if something terrible was waiting for me in the other room, like a crime scene of bloody proportion? Breathing hard, I raced into every room. Then something hit me. A quite strange thought, in fact. All of the furniture was gone. I must have missed it before, but now that I think back, there was dust on everything. It looked as if this apartment had been abandoned for some time. Apart from my own footprints, my leg hurt from a previous injury. I checked the bedroom, nothing. I checked the further room, nothing. I checked the kitchen, nothing. The only room left was the bathroom. The door was closed. I'm out of breath at this point, so I take my time. This is it. This is either everything or nothing. My shoes echo off of the empty corners into oblivion. My hand reaches the knob, slowly kinking back into the mechanism, and the door moans wide open. I found only one object in there. It was a mirror. I don't like mirrors. I hate mirrors, actually. I can see the hideous moles on my arm so clearly in my reflection, and I feel repulsed. I can see the cut I got on my stomach from when I was a child, too. Can you believe that? The worst thing about mirrors? I can see my pupils. When I forget to take my medication, they get so redundantly large and bothered. When I forget to take my medication, I get confused. When I forget, I hurt people. I forget everything I am. My name is Joan, and I have to apologize before starting. This is the story of how I found my neighbor dead in an empty apartment. Second story. My town believed in a Valentine's Day monster. I've been single my entire life. I really don't mind it. It's just how I've always been. And yet, I still buy Valentine's candy and a card every year. That simple thing saves my life. I moved to a small town right before starting high school. It was difficult trying to make new friends and adjusting to an entirely new place at the same time. By the time February rolled around, I was finally feeling as if I'd gotten into the groove of things. I had only made a handful of friends, and to my shock, the first time I was ever asked out on a date was a week before Valentine's Day. I felt awkward going out with a girl who I'd never spoken with before, so I turned her down. She got angry, claiming she had other options and was just being nice. That might be the case, but her extreme reaction confused me. When I was able to, I asked my friend Travis about it. Oh yeah, you die if you're single on Valentine's Day. Get your heart ripped out and everything, so find a girlfriend for the day. He explained, and I scoffed at the idea. Come on, you don't expect me to believe that, do you? I asked, thinking he was just pulling a joke on the new kid. He acted as if he was just giving me some facts. He was looking at me as if I was crazy for not knowing about getting a date or dying. I told him he was crazy, but he just shook his head. It happens every year. Someone gets their heart ripped out. It might not be in this town, but it's nearby. And it's always someone single. I guess you can risk it. By why? It's just one day, he said, trying to defend his point. This was before everyone had a cell phone in their pocket, so I couldn't look up deaths of people missing their hearts right then. I made a note to research it later, so I could call him out on his urban legend. I crossed my arms, still not buying what he was saying. That's stupid. Are you saying, what? Someone knows you're single and kills you. I pressed. A person doesn't do it. Some sort of monster does. No one has lived after seeing it, but people said they heard drums and then found someone without their heart. Travis was again looking at me as if I should know all this. A Valentine's Day monster? Really? Well, Christmas is Santa and there is an Easter bunny, so why can't Valentine's Day have something? For the next 10 minutes, I roasted his idea and belief in the Valentine's Day monster. At least he could take it all as a joke, even if he did believe the murders were real. He wasn't positive a monster was doing it, but couldn't offer up any other reason behind the deaths. And he wasn't risking it. He already had a date lined up with a girl he didn't even like. I still thought the entire idea was dumb. The rest of the school didn't share my outlook. As the days slowly got closer and closer to the fated day, the students got paired up with each other. Some done out of safety, others using the monster as an excuse to finally ask out their crush. I received a few pity offers, but I refused all of them as an act of rebellion against this stupid small town's tradition. I just watched as everyone started dating in fear of death. The stores sold out of candy and cards pretty quick. Normally everywhere would be flooded with red and pink products. The shelves were barren a few days before the 14th. Now, I refused to accept any offers. And I didn't plan on asking someone out either. The school offered a program where you could buy sweet heart candies to be delivered to class for a small fee. I didn't mind getting my new friends one each, all while making up silly names to put on the card of who they would receive it from. It was the only thing related to the whole day I gave into, aside from buying a box of chocolates for myself. The chocolates were just a normal box of assorted types from the grocery store I'd gotten with some money made from doing chores. When I bought them, the cashier slapped a heart-shaped sticker on the box without my permission. A small one for someone to write who the box was meant for. With how crazy this town was over the holiday, I didn't blame her. By that time, I've been so overexposed to anything Valentine-related. Just seeing the sticker put me off eating the chocolates. I shoved them in my backpack to forget about them until after the 14th was over. I really wish I had taken the entire thing a bit more seriously. It wasn't until the night before Valentine's Day that I finally looked up the murders, finding them to be true. Dread started to form in my stomach as I scrolled through the library computer after school while waiting for my father to pick me up. I didn't find all the mysterious deaths, but enough to make me worried. 3 people were found with their hearts missing. The police said that from the state of their bodies, they were killed on Valentine's Day, even though their bodies weren't found right away. An entire town was warning me about this, and yet I still sat in shock after finding out it was true. My father finally got me from school, but told me I needed to walk home the next day. I sat in the car, silently debating on what to do. He just chalked up my distressed state as normal teenage behavior. I didn't sleep that night. I tried thinking of names of students that might not have a date all while knowing it was useless. When the clock turned midnight and it was official the 14th, I nearly had a panic attack convinced the monster would swoop in to take my heart. The only way I got through that night without a mental breakdown was to shift my train of thought back to what it was before looking up the murders. A Valentine's Day monster was stupid. It wasn't real. Some heartless store manager saw the murders and made up the story to sell more products through fear. That was it. It had to be it. I remained awake all night. In the morning, my mother noticed how I looked and offered to let me stay home. I refused, secretly hoping I could find a date if I went to school. The place was abuzz with new couples and gift exchanges. As I walked down the hallway, a few students looked at me with pity in their eyes. Most knew my single stance and how I would be the monster's top choice, if it was real. No one went near me that day if they could help it. My few new friends awkwardly tried to find reasons to rush off if I tried talking to them. All of them having temporary new girlfriends gave them a good enough reason to be left out. My candy heart prank wasn't funny. Some thought it was, but I couldn't find the humor in anything that day. Instead, I spent it looking over my shoulder, expecting to hear drums at any second. The final bell rang and Travis was brave enough to walk over to me for a chat. I think he thought this was going to be our last conversation. The idea got him motivated enough to walk over, but not to find the words. Do you, want to come over? I am going out today, but maybe we can hang out beforehand? There is a really good show, and he trailed off feeling awkward. It's fine. I'll just chill at home. My parents are going out and won't be home until after dinner, so I have the entire place to myself. That never happens. They finally think I'm old enough to be trusted to be left alone. I explained, determined to still not believe in this nonsense even though I was terrified. Travis nodded, looking pale. He wasn't brave enough to press me on hanging out. After all, he was certain I was going to die that night. He didn't want to be around to see it. I'll talk to you tomorrow, I said, and gave him a shaky wave. He gave one back and started to hurry over to his new girlfriend. When you're a teenager, everything is a big deal. As I walked away from school towards home, I felt like I was walking towards my own death. The sky was overcast. It made me feel even more gloomy. I kept mocking myself for my mood as I walked along the neighborhoods that had become familiar to me over the past few months. Finding a small rock, I started to kick it as I walked, trying to take my mind off the fear in my chest. A car started to drive along behind me with such loud music I could hear it thumping through the air. I watched it cruise by, a bit annoyed over the sound. If you're going to blast music, at least play something good and not something that just thudded. As the car kept going down the street, the music went with it. But a hint of the thudding remained. I stopped, confused on why I could still hear the sound if the car was so far. When it finally turned out of sight, I realized the car wasn't the source of all of the noise. My heart started to beat so fast and hard it matched the thudding rhythm that I could swear was getting closer and closer. I didn't look behind me or even get angry at myself for getting scared. I just ran down the street. I should have run up to one of the houses asking for help. I was so frightened nothing rational came to mind. I ran like crazy all while that beating followed. I wish this was a prank but didn't stop running to find out. My mind was unable to work as my lungs burned from the mad dash. For a moment, I thought I was losing whatever was chasing me. I stumbled, nearly falling over a crooked sidewalk square in front of my house. I couldn't tell how close the thumping sound was over my own heart. Sweat poured down my face, and I felt faint. I slammed into my front door, banging on it before I remembered my parents were out. I nearly screamed in frustration. The door was locked, and my keys were buried under my books inside my backpack. That thudding sound was all I heard. It was so close it rumbled in my chest. My hand shook as I fumbled to get the zipper open. I was scared to death and couldn't keep my eyes open. Squeezing them shut, I felt around in my bag for my key. My hand brushed against it when a puff of wind came across my face. I smelled something sweet, and then the wind came again. To my horror, my mind clued into the fact it wasn't the wind but something breathing on my face. It was too late. Even if I got my key, I couldn't unlock the door before whatever brought the heart-thumping sound took my heart too. I refused to open my eyes to see the monster I now knew to be real. I love the sound of your heart. It's a shame it's alone. Let me add it to the others. The voice that spoke wasn't some prank. It was twisted and beyond anything a human could make. My mind was racing. I felt a sharp tip of a claw poke my chest, leaving a small cut through my shirt. A cruel laugh came as I whimpered in fear. With my hand still in my backpack, I felt something that was not my books or my house key. A crazy idea came to mind. It was either that or death, so I grabbed a hold of the only thing I could think of. Yanking the box of chocolates from my bag, I held it out to the monster I still refused to see. My voice strained and shaking, I asked it a question I prayed would save my life. Will you be my Valentine this year? My heart nearly beat out of my chest. Opening my eyes a crack, I could see the box in my hand, but not the creature that brought along countless heartbeats that mixed in with my own. I should have died. Instead of clawing out my heart, the twisted hand with razor-sharp nails reached out and took the box. I forced my eyes shut, my entire body shaking. Something brushed my face, causing me to tense up so much it hurt. That clawed finger brushed some hair from my face with another cruel laugh. What a cute child you are. I'll accept this gift this year, but someday I'll be back to claim your heart. I bit down on my tongue, trying not to scream at that horrible voice. With one final laugh that rattled my bones, the thudding stopped. It took me forever before I gathered up the courage to open my eyes. Nothing was on the front step. I was alone. If it wasn't for the rip in my shirt, I would have thought the whole thing came about due to stress and lack of sleep. I didn't tell anyone what happened. I mean, who would believe me? I went to school for the first half of the day on the 15th. I had barely slept for 2 days and needed to take the rest of the day off. But I didn't want my friends to think I died. All of them looked shocked I'd lived. I just said I got lucky. The school moved on. The short-lived relationships caused by that day fizzed out. As time crept along, I started to dread knowing Valentine's Day was coming yet again. I bought more candy, roses, and a card, expecting a visit from a monster. I should have just gone along and dated someone, but somehow the idea of it was more stressful than dealing with a monster. I anticipated and feared Valentine's Day, only to have nothing happen. Nothing happens besides the fact that the gifts I addressed to the creature go missing overnight. As the years carried on, I kept buying different gifts with the same result. As I've gotten older, I've heard those terrible heartbeats faintly on Valentine's Day. Each year the sound gets louder. I think this year is finally going to be when that monster shows itself. Again, just asking someone out may save my life. But I think if the monster does show up, I'll ask it the question yet again, but this time I will keep my eyes open. Third story. Valentine's Day, 2009. This was originally posted on a blog I used to write. I'm sorry to say it's all true. I'm gonna kill you, she yelled as she ran towards me, the knife in her hand. Her eyes used to be a mesmerizing shade of hazel. Now they seemed almost possessed, infuriated, and dangerously out of control. As she made one swift movement with her left hand, I thought I had been punched. I fell to the floor, cradling my stomach, struggling for oxygen, winded. Something warm and wet trickled over my fingertips and onto the carpet. Blood. Then the pain hit me. I whined as it ripped through my stomach. Shut the fuck up. She pulled me onto my feet by the back of my t-shirt and screamed into my face. I'm gonna kill you. What had I done to make her so mad? Did I forget to get the milk on the way back from work? What had I done this time? She walked over to the window, her body trembling. Why am I surrounded by bloody idiots? My eyes struggled to focus on her back as she turned to face me. Look at me when I'm talking to you, retard. I couldn't focus. She came at me again, eyes wide open, teeth clenched together. The vein rose in her temple as she stared into my eyes. I grabbed the nearest thing to me, a baseball bat. As she moved to hurt me again, I swung the bat. It connected with the inside of her wrist, sending the knife flying out of her hand and crashing onto the table. She let out a low whine, cradled her wrist, and stared at me with her war face. Her body straightened up slowly as she turned to face me dead on. A smile crept through her face. Her eyes smiled with it. She rubbed her wrist again and began to walk towards me, slow and full of confidence. I backed up until I tripped onto the bed. A twinge of pain was met by my hands hastily attempting to subdue it. My retreat was followed by her slow, fluid movement towards me, her face softening as the puppy dog eyes made it to her face again. Ah, what's up, baby K-Bear? There's nothing to be afraid of. It's just me. You know what's so great about fighting? She smiled again, that beautiful smile. We get to make up. I am bleeding. It's just a scratch, babe. She sat down beside me and ran her fingers over my hips. Normally this works really well. She winked at me this time. I see, can't. I think I need to go to a hospital. She ran her fingers over the inside of both of my wrists and gripped them tightly, forcing them over my head. I let out a low moan, the skin around my wound stretched, inducing more pain. You like it rough, do you? She mocked. A malicious expression infected her familiar eyes, ridding them of any ounce of compassion that she had left. Please don't. But my plea was no use. That just fueled her motive. Her face hardened. Her eyes seemed to hone in on something I had said, like a guided missile. Another smile found its way to her lips. Why not? You've never said no before. Besides, whatever you don't give me, I will take from you. I opened my mouth to speak. She used one hand to trap both of mine and pressed a finger to my mouth. She smiled, leaned into my ear, whispering just like your lovely stepdad did when you were 7. I froze. I had never told anyone else that. I just wanted to forget it. I knew it could be used against me, but I trusted her. She let out a schoolgirl giggle. It a nerve? Come on, take your clothes off. She started undoing the buttons of my work shirt. Flashbacks met my mind with unparalleled power. That Saturday in summer. I couldn't go through all of this again. I'd come so far. Stop. I yelled, half at her and half at the memory. Her eyes widened with surprise. I'd never raised my voice to her before. She sat on my lap, still holding my wrists above my head. She leaned into me, her eyes fixed on mine. She came so close to me that I could almost taste her breath. Her lips brushed mine softly, then she pulled away slightly. She leaned in again and kissed me with such force that I felt the skin on the inside of my mouth snag against my teeth. Her eyes stayed fixed on mine the whole time. When she had finished, she pulled away, so I could taste blood mixed with saliva. She tasted it too and spat it out onto the carpet. I rolled over into the fetal position, holding my stomach, as tears began to roll their way down my hot cheeks. I'd let this happen to me again. I didn't even try to fight her off me. I knew there was no point. I didn't have the strength in me. I felt her get up from the bed. She ran her fingers through my hair softly. You were great. As usual, I stared at the wall, trying to repress from my memory what had just happened forever. She got up and turned to me. Hey, I was talking to you. She grabbed my hair and pulled me up from the bed. Get dressed. You disgust me. She looked around the room, searching for something as I tried to stay upright. My dizziness had reached new heights. Ah, she chirped. I remember thinking, oh my God, what has she found? This'll do, she said, slowly putting on my motorbike gloves, the ones with the carbon fiber knuckles. She delivered a sucker punch to my stomach, point-blank range onto the seeping wound. I fell to the floor, now covered in blood. An excruciating pain made its way through my stomach and my chest as I kneeled to cradle the pain in a futile hope that it would stop. A pain in my left breast. A tingling. I was finding it hard to breathe. My heart. I couldn't see. I couldn't hear. Was I dead? Another pain tore its way through the back of my head and down my neck. I opened my eyes, pressed my fingertips against my scalp. Thick. Sticky. Like jam. More blood. She had hit me round the back of the head with a chair. I leaned back against the cool wall. I could just make out the outline of her body. She was standing over me, forcing me to swallow something. A scarily familiar taste hit my tongue. It tasted chalky. Wrong. The world started spinning. I was no longer in fear of what may happen today. I didn't feel happy. Didn't feel sad. For once, I felt at peace. Is this how it feels to die? This was not how I pictured my life ending. I thought back to all of the rows that I had with my family before she convinced me to move out. Why didn't I listen to them? They always knew best. My eyes closed for what I come to believe will be the last time. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? A voice comes out of nowhere. Do you know where you are? There is a strong smell. Cleaning fluids. Sanitization. A rhythmic, high-pitched beeping followed by the mechanical sound of breathing apparatus. I wake up. The outline of a woman dressed in blue meets my eyes. Fuzzy. Blurred. She leans over me. Mom is holding my hand, crying and caressing my cold fingers with her thumb. Mom, I whisper, fighting back tears. She doesn't look at me. Why did you do it? Why didn't you come to us? How could you do this to me? But Mom, how could she think I did this to myself? She lets go of my hand and turns away. There are people here to see you. My eyes meet the wall at the end of the bed. 2 police officers. They introduce themselves as Haley and Michaela. Haley replaces my mom on my left-hand side as they take a seat on either side of my bed. Michaela clears her throat as she takes out her notebook. After asking routine questions, they ask my mom to wait outside. I protest, but Mom insists on getting a coffee and leaves the room. She doesn't even like coffee. Not from hospital vending machines anyway. Michaela is the first to break the silence. Firstly, I need to tell you that you are being placed under arrest on suspicion of actual bodily harm. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defense if you do not mention, when questioned, something which you would later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Do you understand? I nod. What are they arresting me for? I know I hit her with a baseball bat, but that was self-defense. I want to begin by asking you what you remember of February 15th of this year. My eyes are still fixed on the door my mom left open. I'm confused. What's the date today? I ask no one in particular. It's Maundy Thursday, Michaela says, looking at the crucifix on the table by my hospital bed. Maundy Thursday? I run through the Christian calendar in my head. That'd mean April. I frown, trying to remember. 9th, Haley finishes my sentence for me. We have arranged for you to see an independent psychologist to assess you. She'll be here in an hour or so. Haley fails at reassuring me. What do I need a psychologist for? I snap under what she is insinuating. They both look at each other, then back at me. They think I tried to kill myself. The doctors found a large amount of paracetamol in your system, and officers found an empty bottle in your hand. Could you explain how it got there? Haley was trying to be open-minded, as if she could somehow believe me, but I could see through her act. I cannot remember the whole thing. Huge blurs in memory fill my account. I tell them my story. Maybe this time I will be believed. 4th story. Happy Valentine's Day. I got a text when I woke up this morning. Happy Valentine's Day. Only I'm single. The text didn't come from anyone I know. My mother had sent me one, too, but this one was from a restricted number. I didn't think much of it, though. Perhaps someone sent it to the wrong number by mistake. I ignored it, went through my normal routine, got dressed, brushed my teeth, grabbed my work computer, and headed out the door. I turned on my car. Ding. I can't wait to see you today. I tried texting back. You have the wrong number. Sorry, but all I got was an error message. Number unknown. I should have expected it. My phone couldn't have the correct number, since it was restricted. I drove to the train station and parked like normal, hopped on the train heading downtown to my office. The ride was uneventful. One lady was crying behind me. She said something about, no one loves me. Wanna die? Hate Valentine's Day. I didn't pay much attention. People on the train were crazy. Ding. I got something special just for you. I felt really bad for whoever this was. They either got a wrong number from someone without the heart to tell them to their face, or they mistook one number in their phone for another. I couldn't respond, still, since the number was still restricted. I walked through the front doors of my office, found my cubicle, and got to work. I'm usually the first person there, so I watched the crowd as they shuffle in each morning. Bob, Joe, Alice, Miranda, some girl with black hair, Tim. Wait, who was that new girl? I decided to ask Bob, one of my closest work buddies. Me. Hey, Bob. Who's that new girl? The one with the black hair? Bob. Oh, that's Carrie. She started on Monday. Sweet girl. You weren't introduced? Me. I was sick on Monday. She wasn't here yesterday, though. Bob. I thought she was. Maybe I'm remembering wrong. Let me introduce you. When Bob introduced me to Carrie, she looked up, smiled at me, and said, "Happy Valentine's Day." It wasn't cordial. It wasn't cold. It was odd. I couldn't put my finger on it, but something about the way she said it just creeped me out. That's all she said, too. Happy Valentine's Day. Then she looked back at her screen and started typing, like we weren't even there. When I got back from lunch, there was a heart box of candies on my desk with a note. I told you I had something special for you, winky face. Weird. That's what those texts had said. I decided to take the rest of the day off. When I got home, there they were, on the counter. I could have sworn I'd thrown them away on my way out of the office. I quickly took them down to the dumpster and disposed of them. Ding. Did you get my present? Sad face. I ran inside, checked all over my house, and locked the door and all the windows shut tight. I called my mother to let her know what was going on. Mom, all the doors and windows are locked? Me. Yes. Mom, okay. Take a bath and try to relax. I'm calling the cops now. Keep your phone with you. I took her advice. Mom always knew what was best. The bath did help me relax until... Ding. Every muscle in my body tensed. I picked up the phone off of the floor quietly, unlocking it, preparing for the message from the unknown number I knew I'd find. Honey, I'm here. I see you ate the chocolates. Come give me a Valentine's Day kiss. Ox. Slowly, and careful not to make a sound, I got out of the bath. I peeked through the door into my living room. It was Carrie on my couch. Her head turned in my direction immediately, like a soldier snapping to attention. She looked directly at me, through the crack in the door. Happy Valentine's Day. She smiled wickedly. Was that a knife in her hand? I got you the chocolates, but all I want in return is your heart, babe. I screamed, slammed the door shut, and locked it tight. I know she's standing there right on the other side of it. How do I know? I hear her whispering over and over again. Happy Valentine's Day. Fifth story. Valentine's Day urban legend. I should have known by the doe eyes and the shy smile. Jess was a pretty girl, a little nerdy and a little pudgy, but still cute. She had long dark hair, dark brown eyes, tan skin, and the biggest crush on me of any girl I had ever encountered. I should have stayed away from her, but when a guy wants what he wants, it is hard not to go along with it, especially when you just broke up with your ex-girlfriend of 2 years. I had hit a bit of a dry spell the last few months. Becky and I had been dating for 2 years, and she was like the hottest girl in school. I stupidly broke up with her 2 weeks before her 16th birthday. It wasn't smart, I know, but I couldn't take it anymore. We had started out hot and heavy our freshman year of high school. She was popular because she was hot. I was only popular because I was on the football team and she was a cheerleader. Yeah, I know what you were thinking. How cliché, right? It was true, though. We were that couple. She was tall like me and had blonde hair that went down her back. She had the hottest body, too. You were probably wondering why I would break up with such a hot girl. To be honest, it was because she began to smother me. It started out with constant text messaging. Hi, Jacob, baby. Sit by me in English class. I'd text her back and tell her something like okay. Then she'd send me some emoji with a kiss face or something. At first it was flattering because every guy in school, even seniors, wanted to bang Becky, but she only had eyes for me. As time wore on, though, so did my patience. She started insisting on doing everything with me, and if I didn't text her right back, even in the middle of the night, she would pick these stupid fights with me. She was constantly threatening to break up with me if I didn't get in line. So, I did it for her to disastrous results. It was a week before her 16th birthday, and she had this huge pool party planned just before our junior year of high school. Her parents had hired a band, rented out one of those video game trucks, and even had it catered. We got into one of our classic fights and I snapped. I broke it off with her 5 days before the party. She was devastated to say the least, but I didn't care. I just wanted to put Becky behind me and move on to greener pastures. That is when the night of the birthday party, which everyone I knew was attending, I chose to hang out just outside of the house in the street where a bunch of kids were congregating. I didn't have the nerve to go into the party. Some of the seniors were going to Lookout Point, which was a name we gave this local hangout spot that overlooked these cliffs that lead into the Atlantic Ocean. Our town had nothing going for it really except tourism in our small Maine town. So that is when I started to notice how other girls looked at me. Other girls being Jess Maccabee. She was so cute that night with her tank top, short shorts, and her hair all down her back in waves like a mermaid. I thought she was so cute the way she looked at me with her big almond-shaped eyes and her heart-shaped face. We were sitting in this area with a bunch of pine trees and lit a fire out of some old tree branches, creating our own sort of campsite. As we sat around that night drinking beers and I was flirting up a storm with Jess, they started telling scary stories and old urban legends. One being the Valentine's Day urban legend. Then the oldest of our group started asking us if we had heard it. We shook our heads in unison, and I smirked because I knew Dan and his crazy stories. He was the guy that you knew was going to grow up selling tinfoil hats to talk to aliens. He had a conspiracy story for everything. It was funny to listen to all his suspicions about the government and how aliens lived underground. This would be no different. Well, there was this girl who had been jilted by her lover, so she went to this gypsy witch to get a love spell. The spell was 3 nights before a full moon. You had to get a red stick candle for love and write the name of the person you loved. You had to melt the candle down till it was pliable, and then you had to form it into a doll of the person, adding hair, fingernails, bodily fluids, whatever you had of that person. Rumor has it she only had a black candle. So, she did what she could, writing the name of the guy she loved and it turning him into a little doll. In the original spell, you had to bury it for 3 days, then on the 3rd day, dig it up and leave it out under the full moon. Then some spirit would grant your desire using the full moon's energy. Only because she used a black candle, which represents death, her lover died getting his head chopped off. She killed herself after he died, and when they found her, she had that doll in her hand with tape wrapped around the doll's neck. They found her on Valentine's Day. We all busted into hysterical laughter. It was typical of Dan, always telling us stupid stories. I didn't think much of it after that, and I noticed it had begun to get chilly out, and so I offered to share my blanket with Jess. One thing led to another, and we had sex that night in the back seat of my Toyota. When we finished, I took her home with the promise of calling her the next day. A promise I had not intended to keep, but when I woke up the next day to go to my job at Lowe's, I found her jacket in the back seat. I should have given it to someone the next day to give to her, but me being a stupid asshole I am, I texted her. I think I said something like, "Hey beautiful, I have your jacket. Maybe I can bring it by later." I got a quick text back from her. "Oh, thanks so much. I want you to know how much last night meant to me. I have liked you for a while and it was magical. I cringed and sent her a text back, glad to be of service. It was lame, but it was the best I could come up with given the circumstances. I promised to drop off her jacket after I got off work that evening. So as the day wore on, I got a series of texts from everyone I knew telling me about how great Becky's party was the night before. I could have kicked myself because it looked like it was a kick-ass party. It was a never-ending day, and it was slow and hardly any customers came in to shop most of the day, so my boss let me off work a little early. I texted Jess as soon as I got out of work hoping to deliver the jacket and be on my way to the rest of my life. I got a text back from her saying she was home, I could bring it any time. When I got to Jess's house, her family was having this barbecue and talk about awkward. Her dad greeted me at the door. "You must be Jacob. Jess has told us so much about you." I cringed, but I smiled politely. "Say you want to stay for dinner?" I didn't, but I was hungry, and barbecue was enticing, I have to say. The smell of the burgers and charcoal were haunting my taste buds even from the street when I had gotten out of my car. When I walked into the house, I was greeted by an older version of Jess. She looked exactly like her mom. Her mom looked young, 42 maybe at the most. She was smoking hot too. I couldn't help staring at her breasts as he shook my hand. "Jess has told us so much about you and how you met. Come and Jacob, take a seat at the patio table. We are just getting ready for dinner. I hope you like hot dogs and burgers." "Oh my God, Mom," said Jess, rolling her eyes at her mom and looking at me. She was still cute, I had to admit it. Even cuter when she got embarrassed. Maybe I could keep this up for one more day. I ate with her family that night, and then I found myself asking her if she wanted to go somewhere and talk, which was guy code for sex. She willingly went, and we drove back to Lookout Point and did the deed again in the back seat of my car. Tacky, I know, but where else were we supposed to go? I decided I kind of liked Jess, but I wasn't sure I wanted to keep going at this pace. I felt like I was using her a bit, and it made me feel shitty about myself. I decided that for now I would just see how it would go. It went all right, following me with her doe eyes right into my first day of algebra class. It was awkward to say the least because it had been 3 weeks since we had started sleeping together and none of my close friends knew, which meant Becky didn't know either. I kind of wanted to keep it that way for now. That first day of class, Becky came over to me and sat down next to me with this sexy grin. I had forgotten how hot she was, and I quickly found myself forgetting about Jess. I forgot she was sitting in the back of the class watching everything Becky and I were doing and saying. I was such a dumbass. If I could take it back now, I would. But I can't, so there it is. You live, you learn, as they say. I can't believe I am saying this to you, Jacob, but I kind of miss you. I just wish you and I could work things out and go back to the way they were. I feel bad now and realize how stupid I was too. Forgive me and have lunch with me, she asked with her pretty smile. I wanted to, but then I felt eyes glaring at me from behind my head. I dunno, Becky. There are some things I need to take care of first. She looked puzzled, but I knew what I meant. I had to tell Jess I was getting back together with Becky. I sent Jess a quick text. "Jess, can we talk after class?" "Is it about Becky?" She had texted me so quickly, but it was obvious, wasn't it? "Yeah, I guess." Okay. So, after class I met her by the locker room, and when I looked at her eyes I knew then I was in deep shit. She was so damn cute. "Becky wants to get back together." "Well, how does it make you feel?" "I don't know, Jess. I like you too." I meant every word. She kissed me, and that was that. I forgot Becky, and I began a relationship with Jess. Nothing is that simple, though. I didn't tell anyone I was dating Jess. I hid it from everyone, and it wasn't that there was anything I was ashamed of. I guess I just felt protective of her. If that meant I liked her, then I guess I did. I was so confused. Fate had other plans for me, though. 3 months of dating in secret had taken its toll on her, and whenever she wanted to tell people, I always told her I wasn't ready to tell anyone yet. Then she got pregnant. Jess had no intentions of being a mom at 16, so she went to a clinic, and I drove her. After that, things were different between myself and Jess. She wasn't the same sweet person she was before, and eventually I broke it off with her and got back with Becky. A week or so later, I was coming into school on a Monday, and that is when I started to see everyone crying in the front of the school. I parked my car and walked up to Becky, who looked horrified. "What is going on?" I asked. "You didn't see the news?" "No, why?" "Jess Maccabee killed herself over the weekend." I gulped hard and felt like the wind had just been knocked out of me. "What the fuck?" "Yeah, they said her parents found her slouched over her bed after having stabbed herself multiple times in the stomach. She was always a weird girl," said one of Becky's friends, Tracy, that up until this moment I didn't even realize was standing there. "Yeah, they found a weird wax doll in her hand wearing the same exact outfit she had on, with a giant pin in the stomach of it." "What? Are you joking?" I had asked. "No, I wish we were. How sad for her parents, but how creepy is that?" I just stood in a daze, unsure of what to do. There was a funeral a few days later, which I reluctantly attended. I didn't even bother to say anything to Jess's parents. I just went to my car alone and silently wept. I kept feeling like maybe it was my fault for breaking up with her. If I could have brought her back, I would have, but alas, that wasn't possible. That was only the beginning of this weird nightmare. About a month later or so, I was running late for football practice when I remembered I forgot my spikes in my locker. When I went to retrieve them, there was a small 4x4 jewelry box that fell out of the locker with a red ribbon around it. I thought maybe it was a gift from Becky, so I opened it. I smiled as I took the ribbon off. Typical Becky, giving me surprise gifts in my locker. She was the queen of gifts. She was always dropping candy or little lunch bags in there because she knew my combination. When I opened the box, I knew Becky was not the giver of this gift. It was a box with a bloody liver or something in it and a weird piece of red wax melted on it. I assumed it was chicken liver or something, but what I read gave me chills. "Be my bloody Valentine." I dropped the box to the floor, and then I noticed something else. It was a tiny piece of paper. When I opened it up, it was a line of prose, as though someone was trying to get my attention. "Valentine's Day is exactly 5 months away. Don't be a square and promise you will be there in the back of your car." It was how it began. Why couldn't you just be a man? Now she is dead, and you wish it was all in your head. Go to the spot where you were a lot. You will find another gift there from me to you. Why do you look so blue? Turn that frown upside down. Jess is there now, hoping you will not disappoint her. I dropped my football spikes and ran to the back seat of my car. The back of my car had another box in it. This time it was bigger than the small one. I wondered if I should go to the cops, but my curiosity was stronger, and I opened the back seat of my car. The box had a red ribbon tied around it as well. I took a deep breath and opened the box. Thanks a lot for watching the video till the end. Subscribe to our channel Horror in Detail. Drop your opinions/suggestions in the comments section, and like the video as it helps with the YouTube algorithm.